Hey everyone, it's Jeannie, and today I'm here to share a card with you using Tea Time Buddies by Not Too Shabby. So I start off with an A2 card panel, and you'll see that I'm trimming it off about 1/4 of an inch on the top and the bottom. I do that because I want a white border once I mat it onto a card base. I am also placing all the images and figuring out where exactly I want them to sit on the card panel. And that is because I want to create rectangles for each of these images to sit in so they kind of have their own little space. And to do so, I'm using a pencil and a ruler, making sure that all the images will fit perfectly, and I'm marking it off. I'm going to be creating about 1/4 inch strips so you'll see the whites in between each rectangles, and it corresponds with the white border once I mat it onto a card base as well. So it's really hard to see those pencil marks, but those pencil marks are just guides for me for my masking paper. Once I figure everything out, I'm using Eclipse masking paper. I'm trimming them down into little strips so I can mask off that area I had marked off with my pencil. So once I do that, I'll just attach it to the card, and I am able to start ink blending. And I know that there are easier ways to do this, but for me, I really like masking and I really like removing the mask, so it's always fun to do. Another alternative to this type of card is to ink up a whole panel, trim it down, have the images cut out, and then placing it right on top. But for me, I really just like masking generally. It's one of my favorite techniques to do, and I think that it's just really fun. So, because I have those white strips of the masking paper marking off exactly what I want, I go ahead and stamp all the images. The only image that I had to manipulate a little bit are the macarons that are sitting on the upper left hand corner. I wanted the stack to be a little bit higher since that rectangle space has enough space to add a fourth one. So I just go ahead and mask that and then stamp it. So once I have everything stamped out, I have the mask for the stamped images ready to go. So I'm just placing it right on top because I will be going in with some distress inks and I don't want those images to be inked up by accident. The only little caveat here is that the coffee cups have a bit of splatter, and those images are very little. So it turns out that I did ink up one of them because the mask did peel off, but it worked out because I was going to use brown anyway and it covered it right up. So anytime you make a mistake and ink up a part of an image that you need mask, I usually just go in with a darker color that can color right over it, and it's very unnoticeable. So I had come into this card thinking about doing a rainbow theme, but I didn't want to be super typical following the rainbow colors. And it ends up being sort of typical, but not really. So I start off with purple in the middle, and I'm using Wilted Violet. For the blue, I'm using Salty Ocean, and for the pink, I'm using Picked Raspberry. And I just start off using purple and working my way out, and I'm just picking colors that work and blend well together, and it just worked out here where for the right hand side I go purple, blue, green, and then a tinge of yellow. For the left hand side I'm going to go with purple, pink, orange, red, and yellow. Or actually, no, I go purple, red, orange, and then a little bit of yellow. And this worked out really well. It doesn't look like the typical rainbow colors, even though it totally is. And I just go in a couple of times just to make sure everything's blended. I do try to be pretty careful with blending because I do have those small pieces, especially the coffee splatter or the tea splatter in the cups in the bottom right hand box. So once I remove all the masking paper, that's my favorite part, I just go in and color up the little creatures and the images, and they are so adorable. I didn't really have a color scheme for this because with the rainbow colors, it makes it really hard to pick a color scheme that won't clash. So my idea behind it was to color the little animals a neutral color, so I went with gray, And for the teacups, I used the colors of the rainbow that's opposite of what's sitting behind it. So as you can see later, the coffee cups or the teacups will be colors of the right hand side. So it's red, orange, and yellow. And I think that that really works well because it's not fighting with the colors that it's behind. So the teacups are sitting behind purple, blue, and green. And I thought that if I used similar colors, it just wouldn't look as good. So for the creatures, I'm keeping it pretty neutral with the grays. And I did use a cool gray for the little mouse on the top right hand corner, and I used warm grays for the little bunny in the lower left hand corner. For the little coffee splatters or tea splatters, I did have to go in with a darker brown because I ended up inking up those little teardrops. But funny enough, one of these are actually the mask that I didn't realize I didn't take off. So I realized that later on, and I'll just go back in and color it. So moving on to the teacups, like I said, I was going to use the opposite colors. So I ended up using red, orange, and yellow for the three cups. And I think it really works out and it makes the images really pop against the colors that are behind it. And I use this concept for the other things in this card panel. The cups were a little tricky because it's sitting right on purple. And so I picked colors that just weren't in the rainbow colors. I believe I used a teal color, and I forget what I ended up coloring that mouse cup, but it worked out, and I think it's really cute. So I've been feeling more like rainbows and spring colors because it is spring. If you're like me, you're kind of sheltered in place, so you're not really enjoying the sun or going outside or any of that, which is kind of a bummer. But I find that making happier cards with bright colors kind of makes me feel better. And so I've been in this rainbow mood. So I hope you like the colors. I think it's really, really pretty of how it ended up being. And I think that all these images are just so happy and cute and is perfect for spring. And so it really works with the rainbow scheme. For the macarons, I also go in with the same colors because usually with the macarons, inside is the same color as the shell, except a little bit lighter. So I do pick bright colors for the shell, and then I'll pick a very light, similar color for the inside, and I think that that works really well. I did minimal shading. I believe I only used three colors total. So the lightest color would go in the middle without any shading whatsoever. And there I used the two darker colors to do a little bit of shading, but not too much. Just because this these images don't really require that much detail. And I think it turned out pretty good. I really like how the bright colors popped against that orange and yellow. So I guess for the teacup, I ended up going with the teal. So now I'm wondering what I colored in the rabbit cup with. It's been about a week since I created this card, and now I'm getting the time to do the voiceover. But I'm realizing that the time that I'm spending home, the days are blurring a bit, and I feel like a lot of people are feeling the same way. And I'd love to hear what you guys are doing to pass the time. Are you crafting? Are you using your supplies? I had all these plans of like organizing my life and the things that I couldn't do because I was at work. And I realized that, just because I have that time doesn't mean I want to do it still. And so I haven't yet done it. And I think that we're going to be sheltering in place for at least another month or so. So hopefully I can get my butt in gear and maybe I will get around to all these organization projects that I had in mind. But honestly, I just want to sit and color. And I think that a lot of these stamp companies, especially small stamp companies, really need our support because, they rely on our crafty purchases to keep going. And I know that at least Jamie at Not Too Shabby creates these images, and I really enjoy using the images, and I hope you do too. They're just super cute, and I think it's just perfect. So I finished coloring, I'm removing all the masking, and that is my favorite part. So as you remember, I used pencil, so I'll just go in carefully with an eraser to get rid of all those pencil marks. And I'm going to go in and stamp in my little sentiment that I left a little space for. So it's just perfect. So I'm adding adhesive to the back of the card, and I'm going to mat it on the card base, and it leaves that white border, and it's perfect. So it goes along well with my mask strips, and that was my intent for this particular card. So I hope you enjoy it, and check out the Tea Time Buddy stamp set, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.